This is A Rude Awakening. I'm Sabrina Jacobs. On today's show, part 2 of my conversation with Maurice Carney, Executive Director of Friends of the Congo. We'll switch gears and speak to Kailea Rose Lofton and Kate Rose Weiner of Loam Publishing about their latest publication entitled Compassion in Crisis, Building Disaster Resilient Communities. But first, the news.
From across the nation and around the world, for Pacifica Headlines, I'm Jesse Lent. A funeral service in Tyre, Lebanon yesterday for 3 Lebanese civil defense paramedics killed by Israeli strikes in southern Lebanon on Tuesday. Footage courtesy of the Associated Press. According to the news agency, hundreds of mourners marched behind the coffins of the slain paramedics, their fellow medical workers dressed in full uniform, carrying the coffins draped with Lebanese flags on their shoulders and saluting them while mourners wept. Lebanon's health minister says Israeli strikes on the southern town of Nebatet al-Fawa this morning have killed 2 people and wounded at least 10. Lebanon's state-run national news agency also reported additional Israeli raids on the towns of Haris and Al-Tayri earlier today. According to Al Jazeera, the Lebanese paramilitary group Hezbollah has been using low-tech fiber-optic cable drones to fly without radio signals, making their communication systems difficult to jam and leaving Israeli troops on the ground in southern Lebanon exposed to attacks. According to military analyst Elijah Meunier, the tactic was first seen in the Russia-Ukraine war, with Kyiv developing fiber-optic drones to fly up to 25 miles. While Hezbollah's drones are attached to a wire that can only reach up to 6 miles, Magnier told Al Jazeera, quote, "They cannot be intercepted by the Israelis unless they see it physically and shoot it down with a simple shotgun or rifle." He added that Israel has been applying the so-called Rafah doctrine to southern Lebanon, leveling infrastructure in Lebanese towns, as it did in Gaza's southern city of Rafah, to avoid repopulation. Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam has affirmed that he will continue to work hard to recover every inch of occupied Lebanese territory. In a post on X, Salam wrote that the government will, quote, "continue the hard work to improve your living conditions and revive the economy in a way that creates new job opportunities, restores stability, and sets the country on the path to genuine recovery." Israel is on heightened alert, ramping up preparations for a possible return to fighting with Iran, amidst indications that President Donald Trump may be considering ending the ceasefire between the two countries, Israeli television reported on Thursday. According to the Times of Israel, the preparations come as Trump was briefed at the White House on military options by U.S. Central Command Chief Admiral Brad Cooper. At the same time, Israeli officials held a series of intensive consultations amid what they see as growing momentum towards a decision on the Iran war in Washington. The paper reports that Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz warned yesterday that while Israel supports the United States' diplomatic efforts with Iran, it may, quote, soon be required to act again to remove the existential threats posed by the Islamic Republic. According to CNN, President Trump seemed reluctant at the idea of resuming the U.S. strikes in Iran. "I don't know that we need it," he said, but adding, quote, "we might need it." Air defenses were heard in the Iranian capital of Tehran last night after being activated to counter small aircraft and drones, Iran's Tasnim and Fars news agencies reported. At least 3,375 people have been killed in Iran since the U.S. and Israel's war on that country began on February 28th, according to the Iranian Ministry of Health. 2,509 people have been killed in Lebanon, according to that country's Ministry of Public Health. According to Al Jazeera, 26 people have been killed in Israel. 16 Israeli soldiers in Lebanon and 13 U.S. service members throughout the region have been killed as the U.S. and Israel's war in Iran enters its 63rd day. President Trump signed a spending bill that officially ends the longest government shutdown in U.S. history yesterday, approving a bipartisan bill to fund most of the Department of Homeland Security after 76 days of delay and with little fanfare, according to the Washington Post. The law reopens DHS but doesn't include funds for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, or parts of Customs and Border Protection. According to Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, those agencies will be funded next once House members return from a one-week recess.
For 3 years, with no crazy Democrat reforms, we will fund Border Patrol and Immigration Enforcement as soon as we return for the work session.
Those are the latest Pacifica headlines. For the Pacifica Network, I'm Jesse Lent.
Stay in the know and stay in the vibe. KPFA's on social media, serving up hand-picked episodes you need to hear, special announcements, and just enough sass to get you through the week. Find us by searching KPFA Radio and feed your algorithm with something real. Again, that's at KPFA Radio. You'll know once you find us. Trust me, you can't miss it.
You just sent me a raccoon opening a fridge and grabbing something.
Did you watch the whole thing, though?
Yeah, that's not the point.
Come on, man. It opened it like it had leftovers in there.
Why am I getting 5 of these a day?
Is it that obvious I'm trying not to think about the timeline we're living in?
A little.
Honestly, Rod, the news just feels weird, man.
Fair.
I just don't know what's real anymore.
That's why we end up on KPFA.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd do without KPFA.
Sanity, huh? A place to actually understand what's going on.
Not just the same panic loop.
Exactly.
All right, I got one more video.
Yeah, I know you do.
KPFA.
Stay informed without losing your mind.
Coming up at 9 a.m., stay tuned for special May Day live coverage from Pacifica Network News. Voices from across the country and around the world come together as workers, educators, unions, and communities demand a future that puts people over billionaires. Hear interviews, roundtables, and street reports, along with history from the Pacifica Radio archives. With hosts Jenna Flanagan and Norman Stockwell. This is May Day coverage you don't want to miss, right here on KPFA, starting at 9 a.m.
Welcome back, folks. This is A Rude Awakening. I'm Sabrina Jacobs. Here's part two of my interview with Maurice Carney, Executive Director of Friends of the Congo. And part two of this discussion, it's about consumer greed versus protecting the Congo from exploitive mining. What does Maurice have to say about that? Let's take a listen. What do you say to that person? What do you say to that person, Maurice, that wants that new iPhone? They have to have that new iPhone. Any cellular phone, tech gadget.
Yeah. The answer is not as simple as one may think, right?
Yeah,
we've seen, if you follow social media, folks will say, well, it's almost like a default. They say, well, boycott Apple. That's one of the things that they say.
right.
And then they say, buy refurbished or stop vaping. These are what folks, if you follow social media, they tell consumers to do, right?
Right.
However, we're dealing with deeply historic, structural, and systemic issues, right? Sabrina, the current head of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, he gave an interview to the Financial Times. Financial Times is a major, probably one of the biggest, well, certainly one of the biggest financial publications in the world. And just happened to talk about the Congo. And Antonio Guterres, in that interview, he said, this is before he became Secretary General of the United Nations. He said, let us not forget, the international community has systematically looted the Congo. He didn't say Apple has systematically looted. He didn't say Samsung. He didn't say the tech sector. He didn't say the auto sector. He didn't say the electronics sector. He said the international community has systematically looted the Congo, right?
Wow.
Now, faced with that diagnosis, which we concur with that diagnosis, what is the prescription, right? If the Congo has been systematically looted, they could have added for 140 years, right? So it takes a more layered response and engagement. So what we say to a consumer when they're getting an iPhone, the first thing is learn about what's happening in the Congo, right? That's what we get it, learn. Even if you're getting that iPhone, use that iPhone to learn about what's happening in the Congo. What's the source of it? 2, listen to the local voices and what they're saying as to how you can best support them, right? Listen to the local voices. And then take action. And we direct people to freecongo.org, in order for them to take action. We have a series of actions that they can take at freecongo.org. So now, if there's a different question in there, Sabrina, where in this capitalist society we're engaged in conspicuous consumption. Now, whether we talk, this really doesn't have anything to do with the Congo. Just as an individual consumer in the United States, it's incumbent upon us not to feed the beast, right? If you follow some folks, they talk about a degrowth movement, where you cut back on your consumption, where you don't buy the latest version of the iPhone. Not because you think it's going to end the conflict in the Congo, but because as a matter of principle, you don't want to be engaged in conspicuous consumption that's feeding the capitalist beast. So decouple your consumption practices really from what's happening, because your consumption practice is not going to end the conflict in the Congo. There are different policies and avenues for ending the conflict in the Congo, for supporting the local community. But just as a matter of principle, you should be leaning more towards that degrowth path as opposed to the conspicuous consumption path.
That is definitely layered, Maurice Carney. It's definitely a layered answer to that question. Yeah, it just, but it just speaks to the face of capitalism, the inner machinations of capitalism.
Absolutely.
What we are as a capitalist society, and how the tech industry has come to be what it is. It's because of the structure of this country, and the Western countries as well. Wow. Yeah.
And just let me just say this quickly, Sabrina. I have to give a shout out when we talk about the tech industry to the workers. The workers in the semiconductor industry. We work with workers in Silicon Valley, workers out of Europe, and the workers within those tech companies have been incredibly supportive in engaging workers on the front lines in the mines of the Congo and bringing their concerns through the channels of those companies, right? That's like an inside strategy that's being supported by the tech workers themselves, right? Who are challenging their leadership in how they do business and in how they engage workers at the bottom of the supply chain. So I'd be remiss if I didn't give a big up to the workers, United and tech workers in the UK, and the workers in the semiconductor industry here in the United States, who've been very supportive of the workers at the bottom of the supply chain in the Congo.
Yeah, indeed, and that's actually wonderful to hear. To know that there is a message being communicated to them, so that they understand what they're contributing to.
Absolutely.
No, most of the time. And can they afford to care? Can they afford to care? That's the other part. That's a tough one when you got family to feed. and you're being offered such a lovely paycheck, right?
Yeah, but they're challenging from the inside. They definitely are, and they're supporting for them to they don't have to go outside of their comfort zone, right? They don't have to challenge their leadership, and they're doing that by bringing the concerns and the conditions of the workers at the bottom of this tech industry into the space of their companies.
Well, let's close out with this question, Maurice. Here it is.
Mhm.
So you've laid it out as far as where your organization stands, where the people of the DRC stand, where the workers inside those mines in the DRC stand, and all over the global South, because it's
Mhm.
not just the Democratic Republic of the Congo that has these precious minerals.
No, no, not at
It's
all. Yeah.
Greenland. But Greenland is a Danish province, and they're pretty much taken care of. But as far as not having to worry about their population being exploited, but where do you see things? I mean, what is your perfect outcome to this situation, to this issue, to to eradicating the exploitation on both sides?
Mm.
United States with the tech workers.
That's a really, yeah, that's a really good question. I'll just give you, and we won't have time to, I'll just give you an anecdote to give you a sense, right?
Never ending
Uh, you're familiar, with Bolivia, and when Evo Morales was president in Bolivia, and just part of the progressive governments, right? Coming out of Latin America with Correa in Ecuador, at the time Chavez was in Venezuela, Lula, the first go around in Brazil. And we saw these Latin American governments exercising what we call resource sovereignty, where they're taking the resources that are in their land, whether it was oil or lithium or what have you, and ensuring that the local population, the workers, are primary beneficiaries of those resources, right? Through the path of resource sovereignty. And I was on the phone with one of the ministers who was in the Morales administration, and he said, even with the progressive, governments, even with the progressive governments, we see that the power resides in the local community, right? That if the local community is not strengthened, is not supported in a way that it could protect its interests, because even with some of these governments are, like I think in Korea, for example, in Ecuador, they're talking about drilling oil drilling in the rainforest. So the answer lies, Sabrina, in strengthening the local communities, in supporting the local communities, the local indigenous communities, and being in solidarity with them. The Congolese youth mobilized this past November to go to COP in Brazil, to ground with their brothers and sisters in Brazil and Colombia and Latin America and from all around the world. And what we see happening is local communities coming together to share stories, to exchange strategies, just as we engage with the Filipinos that are, caught in the snare of these strategic partnership agreements. So, what is hopeful and exciting is this exchange that's taking place in the global South among local and indigenous communities, where they're learning from each other, standing in solidarity with each other, and irrespective of the governments that they have in place, whether it's progressive or not, in order to protect their interests and advance their interests. So that's where we see the solutions. This is at least a framing of it, anyways, with the short time that we have. But that's the path where we see answers coming out, and a more positive future that in sight.
Well, let me here's an addendum question to that last question. Let's drill down just a little bit more. Maurice Carney, Executive Director of Friends of the Congo. Um, would that be a limiting of the extractivism? Would that include a certain amount that can be extracted and used? I mean, I know that folks use reusable phones, or they use refurbished phones. Cell phones are just one example, of course. There's refurbished computers, tablets, uh, used cars, used electric cars, right? Would that be a part of that framework as far as just?
It would have to be
Mhm.
absolutely. It would have to be a limiting um, of the usage, a
But
rethinking of how we consume. That's definitely have to be a part of it. As I shared with you, the study that came out of university just down the street for me there in at UC Davis that deals specifically with that matter, how in terms of public policy, the role of government and instituting policy that would curb consumption and the extractivism. So that would definitely have to be a part of it. Yes.
Mhm, mhm. So that leaves the bottom line of the tech industry. And we're just, we're going to have to leave that as the cliffhanger because, I mean, these folks, they've got their yachts, Maurice. They've got their, their fleet of, the insert classic car here. You know what I'm saying? I mean, or their fleet of girls, whatever, they've got their excess and they're going to want to hang on to that.
Without a doubt.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, they're taking it to a whole other level, because what we see a trend among the tech pros is to go to the global south, engage with governments that are weak, and get concessions from them. Well, they call these economic zones that they're established, that the governments laid out for them, where they can literally build their own cities and insulate themselves. So they're going to pursue their interests. It's up to us, the workers, the press masses, to challenge, to organize and challenge them. And so they're going to do what they do. So the extent to which we can be organized and be in solidarity with each other on a global scale, I think that's where we're going to see uh, pushback and challenge to the policies that they're pursuing, where they prioritize their profit over the people, their own security, personal security over that of the masses, and where they look to control us through controlling our data. And that's one of the exciting things that we see coming out of the Congo, where young people in local indigenous communities are organizing to control their own data, whether it's in the rainforest or in the mining communities. As we know, as we move into the so-called fourth industrial revolution, artificial intelligence era, data is king. And that's why we see, like in the United States, pushing policies where they're entering into health agreements with African governments, where they get control of the data, the biological data of Africans, right? And we see people organizing to combat that. So again, it comes back to the local folks organizing in a way where they control their resources, they control their data in an effort to combat, the local governments and the global elites. So there's just no shortcut to it in terms of being organized locally in a way that you can exercise control literally over your own, genetics, because that's what it's come to.
It has, and very, very terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. But yes, we do have the power. You do have the power as an individual, as a community, as a group, dear listener. So, got to come together. And of course,
Right.
now
And the power begins with education.
that's
It
right.
begins with education. We have to know popular education. That's what these films, to come back to these films, that's what these films are about, educating people about what folks are, the organizing, the movement building, the agency that's being exercised, in this case, in the Congo, whether it's at the bottom of cobalt and copper mines, whether it's in the heart of Congo's peatlands or the heart of Congo, the Congo Basin. There are local indigenous communities that are organizing in a way that we all can learn from and draw from.
Most definitely. All right, and that's Indijima. And sorry. So one of the movies or one of the documentaries is entitled Indijimu. And there's also
Njimu, yes, one is Njimu, yes.
And then the critical minerals powering the U.S. war machine from the Philippines to the Congo. And that's what you've been referencing quite a bit here during our conversation, Maurice Carney. And
yes.
That is up on the YouTube channel for Friends of the Congo. So you can just do a search for that. And of course, I will have all the pertinent links from our conversation on the show description page for A Rude Awakening at kpfa.org.
Yes. And Sabrina, if people want to access any of these films, they go to freecongo.org. And there's a button there where it says films, Basanja Films. They can access them there.
Okay. And of course, and then Basanja Coalition as well, right? And that's basanjacoalition.org?
Yes. Basanja.org, BASANDJA.org. But it's easier, just go Free Congo and you get access to all of that. That's like the portal or the gateway, freecongo.org, and you'll get access to all of that.
All right, freecongo.org. And yeah, oh wow, Maurice, thank you so much. And I'm so glad. I'm so happy.
Thank you.
You all exist because I'm smarter because of it. We've been talking for years, over a decade here. Maurice Carney, Executive Director, Friends of the Congo. Thank you so
much. Thank you.
Appreciate you being on A Rude Awakening once again. Welcome back. We are back. This is A Rude Awakening. I'm Sabrina Jacobs. Polycrisis. Let's start with the definition of polycrisis. Polycrisis is the simultaneous occurrence of multiple intertwined global crises such as climate change, war, pandemics, and economic instability that interact to produce a total impact far greater than the sum of their parts. It represents a crisis of crises or a confluence of calamities that overwhelms traditional, siloed management approaches. These days, polycrisis looms large in daily life. Confronted with this situation, Kate Rose Weiner and Kalia Rose Lofton began collaborating on what would become Compassion in Crisis, Building Disaster-Resilient Communities, a book that presents a strategy for catastrophe guided by values of curiosity and communal care. This book, Compassion in Crisis, Building Disaster-Resilient Communities, was born out of the Loam Publishing Project. And here to talk about this insightful new publication are Kalia Rose Lofton and Kate Rose Weiner. And for those of you who do not know who these amazing people are, Kalia Rose Lofton is a mother of Tahltan, Kaska, and Black American ancestry. She is the co-editor of the community publisher Loam and has guided climate change policy with an emphasis on Indigenous rights, previously serving as a climate commissioner for the city of Petaluma, California. And Kate Rose Weiner is a writer, editor, and publisher working at the intersections of culture and climate justice. She is the co-editor of community publisher Loam and the director of Loam Library, a mobile library committed to bringing the power of print to the people. Kate's work is shaped by her studies in environmental art, social practice, and community herbalism. Let's take a listen to that conversation. Right, so let's start with the Loam Publishing Project. Talk to us about the project and how it works. Which one of you lovely people would like to field that first question?
I can go first. So I actually first started Loam as a scrappy zine and community gardening project when I was in college. And since then, it's taken many different shapes, but about 8 or 9 years ago now, Kailea and I connected first through social media and then later as part of the Spiritual Ecology Fellowship. And I think just really quickly recognized one another as collaborators, shared who really shared a deep love and commitment to the power of print. And in the nearly decade now that we've been co-stewarding Loam, we really focus on publishing magazines, books, zines, card decks that explore climate justice, environmental art, social change, with a commitment to holding nuance, bringing compassion to everything we do, and really encouraging people to read and to nurture the skills of attentiveness and presence and capacity for holding multitudes that spending time with longer form materials invites us into. And more recently, we rehomed within the Weaving Earth Center for Relational Education, and it's been such a gift to be a part of their ecosystem now. And as their publishing branch, we continue to focus on books that explore ecology and spirituality and personal systems change.
And what was the name of that organization again that you're partnering with?
Their name is the Weaving Earth Center for Relational Education.
The Weaving Earth Center for Relational Education. Wow. Okay. And you're the publishing branch or portion of their organization. Okay. And what is a website for them so folks can check it out?
It's weavingearth.org. And yeah, they're incredible. You know, they facilitate amazing in-person retreats. They have youth and teen programs. Kailea actually participated in one with her son, I believe when he was very young. And actually, Kailea, maybe you can speak more to that, but they do incredible work helping reconnect people to earth intimacy skills and to inspire re-enchantment with our world.
Wonderful. Kailea, please expound on this. This is amazing.
Sure. Yeah. So as Kate had shared, Weaving Earth is provides educational programming with an emphasis on being out on the land and for youth and also adults. And so, as Kate had referenced, my son and I, back when we did a 9-month program with Weaving Earth, the adult portion of it. My son was 9 months when we started the program. And it was really special. At that moment in time, the adult program, I believe we met once a month for a long weekend and even sometimes up to a week. And we were led through all sorts of really beautiful, incredible programming out on the land, like learning about birds, learning how to make fire, learning how to make herbal medicine. Currently, the adult programming at Weaving Earth is umbrellaed under something called Attune. And so we highly recommend their work, and want to just let everyone know that it's easy to find out more about Weaving Earth by going to their website, weavingearth.org.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. So, Kailea, so talk to us about. I mean, is there anything else you'd like to add as far as how Loam Publishing Project works?
Kate, I think, might have already said this, but I do think it's important to just echo and reiterate that we are independent and we are also ad free. And so we really do actually consider ourselves a community powered print publisher. And I would say at this moment in time, it's pretty rare to actually have an indie ad free magazine. And also and also to be in the world of publishing books using, or I would say like continuing to be really grounded in just the ethics of how we go about sourcing the paper, and ensuring that how we move through the print process is really values aligned. So I feel really proud of the work that we do at Loam, and committed to continuing to just provide really high quality material for our readers.
Absolutely. Yeah, proud. I'm proud of you as well. What is the website for Loam, please?
So we are loampublishing.org.
All right.
And Loam is just simply spelled Loam. And Kate might want to briefly speak to this, but loam is in the loaminess of earth, like that beautiful, truly enriched soil.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. So, who wants to field this next question? How did this work, Loam Publishing Project, give rise to the book?
I can start and then pass it along to you, Kailea. So, Kailea and I at that point had maybe been working together for a year, and Loam really focused on an annual magazine. And one of the things I was really excited about is, one, I just wanted to deepen my collaboration with Kailea. I loved working with her and always felt so inspired by her perspectives and what she brought to this work. And then I was also interested in pursuing a book project, something longer form that would require deeper research, that would weave together more voices. So I reached out to Kailea with an open invitation. If we were to work on a book project, what would that look like? And yeah, Kailea, I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. So, this was back in 2018. I had a newborn at that moment in time. My son is about to be 8 years old. And, Kate had reached out, had asked what could a project look like between us, in terms of a book, not a magazine, because we hadn't yet moved into the world of bookmaking. And I told her I wanted to do a project that was oriented on community resilience and community response in the aftermath of large scale disaster. Kate and I were both living at that time in two states, California and Colorado, that were experiencing a lot of wildfires, and also really heavy smoke exposure. And so at that moment in time, being like a new parent, I felt like I wasn't really coming across the resource that sung the praises of community organizing in the aftermath of these kinds of events, and also provided some type of a directive for everyday people like myself to figure out the best way to prepare my household and prepare my family, and also provide support towards preparing my community. And so, I had pitched, the idea back over to Kate that we should do what we now call, we like to call Compassion in Crisis, a holistic disaster preparedness guide. I think at that moment in time, we didn't even have the words for it, but I essentially pitched that idea, and Kate said, "Yeah, let's pick it up. Let's try this out." So the very first edition of Compassion in Crisis actually came out at the end of 2019. Just, in reflection, I'm like, wow, a few months before the 2020 pandemic started and people went into lockdown globally. And our readers loved it. The book felt, at that moment in time, hugely experimental, because we were wanting to provide a side door entryway into talking about preparedness, without scaring people. Ultimately, we're trying to figure out how do we offer a way for people to step into this work, step into the consideration of what could be, without having it be completely fear-based. And so, in light of that, we ended up with this really beautiful cover, cover illustration from this artist named Fiona Navuz, is light pink. And
Mhm.
in so many ways, we ended up designing the resource that we really ultimately wanted to receive. And our readers liked it and they picked it up, and it honestly became this a grassroots resource. It just went hand to hand. And we were able to do it at one point in time a second print run. We sold out of that. And then because Loam is so small, we're truly a small independent publisher, we were trying to figure out how do we afford to do this again, because our readers kept asking, can you, we want more of this book. Could you please get this into more places? And so in 2023, we began a process, maybe actually in 2022, I think we began a process of pitching the
Mm.
book to traditional publishers. And so in 2023, we received the incredible news from an editor at Heyday Books that they wanted to pick the book up, and they wanted to move forward with publishing it. And so over the last 2.5 years, Kate and I have spent a lot of time actually re-interviewing, re-editing, and completely expanding what that initial first resource and edition was into what this second edition is now. And so just for any of our readers who maybe had that first edition, we want to share that it's about 90% different. It's bigger. I feel like we because we had the opportunity to put out that first edition and kind of think about and figure out what worked and also what was missing with the second edition, which is such a rare opportunity and gift. We got to think about how we wanted to make it better. So that's the edition that is coming out next month through Heyday Books, and we're just so grateful that we were given the blessing of being able to go back to a project, and also that we get to circulate something that our readers felt so strongly about.
Yeah, and what a blessing this book is. It really, truly is a blessing. And when it comes out in May, on what day? Because today is May 1st. So what day is it coming out this month?
The book is actually coming out mid-May,
Mhm.
and we are kicking off a grassroots book tour at Point Reyes Books on the evening of May 17th. That's a Sunday. And then we have an incredible lineup of events that are going to be taking place across the greater Bay Area. But all to say that if you come to that book launch event at Point Reyes Books, you definitely get the opportunity to buy a physical copy in person a few days before it starts hitting bookshelves. And yeah, we want to put it out there that we're just excited, and we hope that we get to see you at one of our events.
Okay, well, we'll get back to the events in a sec. We want to get to the book here. So that's amazing. That's an amazing story. And wow, the amazing work of Loam Publishing. It is so important. I mean, independent publishing. Wow, because it's always been like just one or two houses or three houses or maybe four or five. I could probably name a few right now, but it's like, it's if you don't get picked up by one of them, your book's not gonna make it to the New York Times bestseller, but this isn't about that. This is about blood, sweat, and tears and just a true passion. And I applaud both of you, Kalia and Kate. So with this book, let's talk about the structure of the book. Let's talk about why it was set up the way that it was. Kate, would you like to go ahead and field that question?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that this newest edition is organized is three sections. And the first is really an opportunity to presence with people who are doing this work. We hear from mutual aid organizers, from firefighters, from death doulas, and it's a compilation of interviews with people we really admire, respect, and have learned so much from in this world of community-led disaster preparedness, which I truly want to emphasize because I think so much of popular understanding, popular conceptualizations of disaster preparedness are around the isolationist prepper, but everyone we talk to and learn from this book brings such a powerful community orientation to this work. And every interview also concludes with guiding questions, prompts, and practices to help readers integrate this work into their lives. One of the things we heard from readers in past iterations is they really appreciated that this could be a community textbook of sorts, and material that they could work with in their communities. So we really wanted to design it in such a way that you could bring this book to a book club, to a community gathering, to your school, and really work through it as a group. The second part, Resources for Resilience, is really about tending to our somatic and spiritual selves throughout polycrisis. And so we have incredible somatic practices from our dear friend Taylor Shanae, who was also a contributor to the earlier iteration. We have herbal resources and remedies for helping cope with both the physiological and psychological impacts of living through polycrisis. And then we have some really beautiful and accessible earth intimacy practices from Weaving Earth for grounding in our bodies. And then the last section is maybe closest to what people might think of when they think of preparedness. We're really indebted to Summer Star, who's an incredible community educator, for so generously sharing so many of her open source checklists with us. But this section is really, it's very practical and instructive. It's guidance for what to do in the event of evacuation, for different kinds of disasters. It's advice on how to stock our shelves, to resource our neighbors, but our real focus with every one of these checklists is to move past individual considerations and towards collective considerations. So it's very much a community-shaped guide to the practicalities of preparedness.
Okay. And Kylea, please add more.
I would say that, a part of why we have, we like to consider the book a holistic disaster preparedness guide is that we were really trying to think about how to provide a wraparound experience for the reader. So we wanted to ensure that, through the interview section, there's clarity in terms of examples from other people who have been through some type of a bigger experience and also have worked in some form of response within their community. So there are clear examples that people can consider in terms of thinking about how it is that they might want to show up in their own communities. And just to name it, there are so many roles that exist within community organizing work. And so we hope that that section can kind of expand, how it is that people think about what it means to be a good neighbor. And then, as Kate had kind of outlined and shared for those additional two sections, we wanted to make sure that readers had a place to land, the physicality, the land, their body. A lot of, I would say, preparedness guides can be a little heavy-handed when it comes to it being just kind of maybe like information overload. And so there was a real intention in terms of placing the work of sitting with the body, understanding the nervous system in the center of the book, as a way to hopefully help readers feel like there's a pacing, and that there's spaciousness ultimately for people to really sit with and consider the emotional body and the work of tending to the emotional body as a part of how it is that we stay healthy during moments of intense and acute stress. And then, of course, we wanted to ensure that we had the checklists, not just for the sake of having checklists, but, again, as a way to, that section of the book, as Kate had shared, Summer Star is a contributor, but there are other organizations and individuals for this second edition that we got to weave in for the very first time, like emergency legal responders, Maui Rapid Response. They had some incredible resources that we were able to bring in. A community-based organizer named Rebecca Ussolini, Birthmark Doula Collective. we wanted to bring in people who had resources that also provided another kind of framing for how to step into or consider how it is that you might do preparedness both for the household and also for the wider community. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, we, as I had initially shared, we wanted to create a resource at the outset of all of this 8 years ago that we felt was lacking when we went to look for a place to kind of reconsider what it means to be a very awake human right now. Um, and while this is a moment of urgency, and while this is a moment where we all need to take, I think, real deep consideration around what is at stake, um, it's also a moment, I think, where so many of us need to feel like we have a place of respite. And so we're hoping that this book can really just feel like a hug more than anything. I mean, the information is in there, but we hope people can also feel like there's a container for them to situate themselves within.
Most definitely. And it is a hug. It really is, Kylie. It really is. There's just this really warm feeling of, okay, there are people out there that are talking about what I think about or what I thought about when I went through this disaster, and the processes that I wish I could have had available, to me to know, or maybe they already did know. And yeah, it's just, it's a, it's a wonderful thing. It really, truly is thoughtful, extremely thoughtful book. Again, the name of the book, folks, is Compassion in Crisis: Building Disaster Resilient Communities. So there's a lot. I mean, this is all about the community, all about the community that you've created with Loam Publishing, all about the community that you've partnered with in Weaving Earth, weavingearth.org, loampublishing.org. And of course, all pertinent links will be on the show description page for A Rude Awakening at kpfa.org. One last question for you both. And I've got a little bit of time, so just a little bit. So we're looking at 1-2 minutes here. What do you have to say to those that are of the mind that they don't have much to give to their community or to the community or a community? What do you say to those folks? How would you be changing the hearts and minds of those that are just apathetic? Who would like to take that question?
I'm happy to, I'll start.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would offer that there's the gift of time and the gift of presence. Again, I think sometimes we can maybe overly complicate this idea of what is considered to like have worth in terms of a really explicit kind of offering. But a lot of the times within most, maybe all communities, there are many different kinds of organizations and people that are already doing really beautiful work in service of. And most of the time, we don't actually have to reinvent the wheel or start anything from new. We actually just have to be willing to um, to take up the invitation and step into service and support with that entity. So, just to name it, I think volunteering is a beautiful offering, and I think I think it can be like one tangible way for someone who's maybe feeling a little stuck right now. Just like get out there, go find an organization that you feel good about where you live, um, and try out just showing up in your community in that simple way.
Most definitely. All right. And Kate, go right ahead.
I first want to name that I think apathy is a really understandable emotion, and it's so important to release shame around experiencing moments of apathy. I think shame is what keeps us stuck. And so all to say, if someone is feeling a wave of numbness or grief, that's really valid. And I think we live in a culture that demands perfection and purity, and that can make it even harder to move forward. And all to say, I think one of our hopes with this work in particular is that it remains invitational and accessible, and that people feel welcome to show up as they are, which is to say, show up as someone who might be experiencing a whole spectrum of feelings from despair to grief to numbness, and know that all of that is welcome here, that it's part of the human experience. And the work is to find our way forward together. And I think there are so many invitations. I hope that there are so many invitations throughout this book that can meet people in different moments. I know that, the work is collective, and that the very first step is almost always reaching out to people who are already doing this work and finding some small way you can contribute in whatever capacity you have.
All right. Okay. Kalia, my goodness. Kate, wow. All right. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up and just give us that first date again. Kalia, where are you going to be? It's on the 17th, right?
It's on the 17th at Point Reyes Books. And then we also will have an event. We have a few events in the North Bay. So Sebastopol, Petaluma. And then we have also a few events in the East Bay. So we'll be in Oakland and in Berkeley. And we invite everyone to check out our website, loampublishing.org, and you can head over to our events page. And we have links there for registration to all of these events. And we hope to see you there. And we're excited for the opportunity to just get to listen and learn from communities over the coming weeks here.
Oh my goodness. Again, folks, the book, Compassion in Crisis, Building Disaster Resilient Communities. It is going to be out around 17th of May, around that date. So you got the event that you can check out. You got the book for all the educators out there. It's definitely a must read if you are so inclined to do so. It's great for students, I would say, from middle school on up to collegiate level. Kalia Rose Lofton, Kate Rose Weiner, thank you so much for being on A Rude Awakening. Truly appreciate both of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Once again, folks, just want to remind you that all pertinent links are on the show description page for A Rude Awakening at kpfa.org. And that does it for another edition of A Rude Awakening. I'm Sabrina Jacobs. A big thank you to my guests, Maurice Carney, Kalia Rose Lofton, and Kate Rose Weiner for taking the time. Kirsten is on the controls. Music on today's show is Arve Indrickson with Peace, Please. Stay tuned for live coverage of May Day happenings in and around the Bay Area. I'll be back in 3 weeks' time. That's 3 Fridays from now. Got to make way for the fund drive. And remember, if you're donating for this show, for A Rude Awakening, let it be known. And don't forget, good people, embrace each other as we embrace the mother of us all. Thank you for listening.
Pulitzer Prize winner, best-selling author, and one of the most uncompromising voices in journalism today, Chris Hedges.
In America, the poet Langston Hughes said, "Negroes do not have to be told what fascism is in action, we know. Its theories of Nordic supremacy and economic suppression have long been realities to us. The Nazis, when they formulated the Nuremberg laws, modeled them on our Jim Crow-era segregation and discrimination laws. Our refusal to grant citizenship to Native Americans and Filipinos, although they lived in the U.S. and U.S. territories, was copied by the German fascists to strip citizenship from Jews."
Storytelling for social change, only on KPFA. In just moments, we are going to join Pacifica Network News for 6 hours of live May Day coverage. Workers over billionaires. From 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., hosts Jenna Flanagan of our sister station WBAI New York and Norman Stockwell of the Progressive Magazine bring you street reports from labor actions nationwide, roundtables with union leaders from the American Federation of Teachers and Southern Service Workers, historic audio from the Pacifica Radio Archives, and international voices from Cuba, Palestine, and South Africa. It's May Day. Stay with us as workers across the globe demand a world that works for them. This is the mighty 94.1 KPFA, 89.3 KPFB in Berkeley, 88.1 KFCF in Fresno, and online everywhere. Because somebody's got to use the internet for good at kpfa.org.
KPFA.